The thing is for people that don't know James Fishback, I mean, you guys really need to go vote August 18th. If you live here in Florida, go vote for James Fishback. And this is the kind of stuff that James Fishback sort of says, you know what? We have to push back on this narrative, on this ideology, because we want to save our culture. We want to have our kids grow up in an area where we preserve our culture. If Charlie Kirk was still with us, he would 110% endorse James Fishback. I am 100% convinced, because James Fishback is America first. James Fishback is pro-America. But I am telling you guys, you need to go vote for James Fishback. He is the real deal. What's up, guys? This is God, Grit, and Glory, and I am your host, Veto Creed. We talk about the stuff that most people stay quiet about: Jesus, business, politics, and occasionally a few conspiracy theories. No scripts, no filters, just straight up truth. So join us as we unravel and speak truth. Welcome all, this is Veto Creed with God, Grit, and Glory, and we have another episode for you today. We had a very interesting day progress today. James Fishback, for many of you guys that know, I'm going to share a couple of clips here during this podcast of James Fishback coming on my show back in December. We had a good few hours. I mean, he came on my podcast late last year, and I was pretty moved by him. I was moved by his just his candor, his professionalism. He's a very well put together person. I can't really say that about a lot of people. Obviously he's extremely articulate. He definitely lights up the room. Like, he has a very strong aura, like a strong presence. He has a lot of that Charlie Kirk vibe that I got from Charlie Kirk. He kind of fills up the room. He's not a very big guy. He's very average size, probably about 5'11", maybe possibly 6 feet. But reality of it is he's a very, very high energy guy, very high energy. I like when I was talking to him, and we originally just reached out to him and said, hey, James, you want to come on our podcast? And our producer reached out and had a conversation with him, and he's very open to it. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And because he's, at that point, he's trying to get any airtime he can. Right now, it'd probably be a lot tougher because, he went on Tucker and he went on all of these big, podcasts, and he's kind of a celebrity now. So I'm kind of really happy that I was able to get him in the door, early stages. A lot has happened for him. The thing is for people that don't know James Fishback, you guys really need to go vote August 18th. If you live here in Florida, go vote for James Fishback August 18th. So we're going to share a clip here of James Fishback coming out and allegedly claiming that Byron Donalds, his number one opponent, the one that actually got endorsed by Donald Trump, committed a sexual felony, a sexual crime, trafficking crime.
On July 21st, 2026, NBC News reported that Republican Florida Congressman Corey Mills was under criminal investigation by the Department of Justice. Like virtually every federal investigation, this one began with a single suspect and quickly spread to include others. This government whistleblower who approached my campaign has confirmed that this investigation has now expanded to include U.S. Congressman Byron Donalds, who, along with Corey Mills, is under investigation for federal sex trafficking. Federal prosecutors are investigating two dates in question: May 17th, 2024, and November 19th, 2024. Dates when Congressman Mills and Donalds are said to have traveled to the MGM National Harbor, a luxury hotel resort in Oxon Hill, Maryland, where prosecutors believe that both Mills and Donalds solicited, procured, and paid women for sexual acts. Federal prosecutors are in the final stages of this investigation and will soon charge both men under Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 1952, a felony that carries a conviction of 5 years in prison.
And I say that because it's pretty astonishing to me that somebody that is actually an active senator, and he's in our Senate, he's part of our Congress, is actually able to do that. Then why are you guys surprised? I mean, we live in a world where, the Epstein files were supposed to be released weeks and weeks and months and years. And I mean, it turns into from weeks to months to years, and we're still waiting for them. And then when Thomas Massie came out and released a whole bunch of them, all of a sudden, a lot of it got redacted, and they pulled a lot of the Epstein files off of the internet. I'm actually kind of curious to see what the media is actually going to do with this situation. I could only imagine what Byron Donald's media team is doing right now. They're probably losing their minds. They're absolutely losing their minds. I mean, he got millions of dollars from APAC. We all know that. He's a shill for Israel. And of course, we already knew that he has some fraud charge. I mean, he has, I think, another charge for some other crime in the 90s. I mean, he's a little bit older. I mean, he's probably in his, I don't know his exact age, probably early 50s. I would say if you kind of look at him, they're already coming out and giving him nicknames. Byron Diddy Donalds. Byron Diddy Donalds. Byron Diddy. So it's kind of a funny nickname considering, the alleged convictions against him. And they're saying the DOJ is the one that's investigating him. But I will tell you guys, whether this is true or not, I'm going to say this because people are like, well, I think James Fishback is just spreading misinformation. And I'm like, look, the truth is I don't personally believe that's even possible. And I'll tell you why. To do something like this at another opponent is diabolical, and it would be extremely defamatory. In fact, Byron Donalds could potentially sue him for tens of millions of dollars if it was, in fact, not true. So I'm pretty sure that James Fishback did his due diligence, probably, ran it by his media team, his attorney. He talked about this well over a week ago. So Byron Donalds, by the way, he already knew that James Fishback was going to say something. So this isn't new information. And I would imagine that Byron Donalds probably was sitting there probably like sweating beads, knowing the fact that James Fishback was going to literally call him out. I mean, it's crazy to think that we live in a time right now that these sort of things just sort of happen under our noses, and we are never even familiar with it or even aware of it. And this is what I told my wife, because this is what I personally believe. I don't think the media, even Fox News, maybe Newsmax will, but I don't even think Fox News, let alone CNN or any of these other major channels will spin this story, just because unless they really, really, really want to make sure they piss off Trump, because Trump did seriously endorse this guy. He put a big stamp of endorsal on his reputation. He said, oh, this guy's a great guy. I mean, they've asked a lot about him specifically, and Trump takes credit for a lot of the people that he shills for. But let me tell you something. Byron Donalds, he is pro-abortion. Byron Donalds is pro-George Floyd. How can you support somebody knowing that they are pro-BLM, Black Lives Matter movements? These are all woke propaganda outlets. These are all woke causes. They're all, I mean, some of them will say, well, some of you may say, well, they're just virtue signaling. Oh, it's not a big deal. He's Black. Obviously, he's going to protect the Black community. It's a lot worse than that. If you're a Republican, there is no way in heck that you should be representing a movement that is for babies, which is abortions, and Black Lives Matter, which is claiming that every single white person is a white nationalist or a white supremacist or a racist. This is disgusting. And they call Fishback a white nationalist. They've been calling him white nationalist since he started running. It's pretty disgusting, because they're trying to turn it into like derogatory and saying he's a white nationalist, like in other words, Hail Hitler, white nationalist kind of thing. And I'm like, guys, why is it so shocking to you that somebody like him has a chance to win? I mean, he's really young. I mean, he's in his early 30s. He recently got married. His wife's name, I believe, is it sounds kind of Slavic origin and stuff. She could have been born here. I don't know, but she has a very Slavic name. And I'll tell you, even when I sat and I talked to James here at my house, at our studio, I should say, we had a lot to discuss. We grabbed a ton of sushi. I'm very hospitable when it comes to my guests. I'll give them sushi. I'll give them, any type of food that we're eating at the time. I ended up getting like over $150 worth of sushi, some high-end sushi place here. It's kind of a hole in the wall, extremely good. And he was astonished by the quality of the sushi. Very, very good sushi. And he kept talking about it. In fact, in some of our podcasts, he brings it up a couple of times about the sushi because he loved the sushi. And we had a lot of discussions. I asked him sort of some couple of personal questions about him and, what is his stance on this and that and, his opinion on this and that, and not to get into the weeds a little bit, but he had a lot of positive things to say. He had a lot of positive things to say and a lot of things that we could definitely align together with. A lot of people don't like him, probably because Trump doesn't like him. And the reason Trump doesn't like him is because the deep state tells him not to like him. And let me be very clear with you. If Charlie Kirk was still with us, he would 110% endorse James Fishback. I am 100% convinced because James Fishback is America first. James Fishback is pro-America. I mean, let's go through some of the stuff that he initially wants to get rid of. He wants to get rid of, first and foremost, mass immigration. He always brings up the story of how his father lost a job to somebody else because of they allowed mass immigration. And because of that, he had a landscaping business. I could be mixing up with his grandfather, but he had a landscaping business, and essentially somebody came in and pushed him out of the industry. And some of these, obviously, Cubans and Latinos and other companies that are, ethnic groups that are coming in here are willing to do it for a fraction of the price. And so he's very adamant about expressing his frustration about this. And I don't disagree with him. Mass immigration is a real problem. I mean, we could see what's going on in Spain recently, where Spain has been infiltrated by a ton of migrants, which of course people are saying that Bibi Netanyahu is the one that has everything to do with it because they've taken a very strong stance against Israel, go figure. And he's sort of retaliating by sending in mass immigration to this area. So mass immigration, we see that what's happened in Europe, specifically France, Ireland, even in Scotland, even areas, of course, England being kind of the hub of everything. So London and, of course, Paris, France, and that whole area is fully infiltrated. And they're spreading like wildfire. And unfortunately, a lot of these ethnic groups are actually Muslim. So they're going in there, they're having tons and tons and tons of children, and they're taking over. And this is the kind of stuff that James Fishback sort of says, you know what? We have to push back on this narrative, on this ideology, because we want to save our culture. We want to have our kids grow up in an area where we preserve our culture. And so there was even a lot of stuff that was done. I think Jay Collins was one of his opponents. He actually sued him, filed a suit against James Fishback because he said he was illegitimately running for governor. Imagine being that petty. And of course, you guys have to remember, any publicity, whether good or bad publicity is still publicity. So the fact that he was trying to sue him, and of course that lawsuit was lost, and they were trying to discredit him because they had nothing on him. The guy is clean as a whistle. The problem with a lot of opponents that run is they usually come in the door, and if they're not going to run for a certain cause, they start attacking them. We remember what happened to Kavanaugh, right? I mean, Kavanaugh was running for a judge seat, and he got sent through the ringer. Even if there was anything even alleged against him, they literally they pulled out all the stops. The Democrats were destroying them because they didn't want the Republicans to get the majority seat. So it's a real problem when you notice a lot of these things happening. So of course, Jay Collins, he does this thing, and I'm going to tell you guys, he's a punk. I can't say anything else about Jay Collins other than the fact that he's obviously not going to lose. He's not even in the race, really. He's sort of like that extra third wheel in this race, right? It was Byron Diddy Donalds and James Fishback. We already know that is no longer the case based off the allegations alone. But I genuinely believe that media is going to try to push this under the rug. They're going to launch a massive hush campaign where they're not going to promote this because we only got about it's the 6th. I mean, you have until the 18th. We have less than 2 weeks until the deadline for voting. And so they're going to do their absolute best for the next 12 days for any of this not to surface out. And they're going to encourage people. I wouldn't be surprised if they injected a couple of, maybe another $5 or $10 million to sort of take their last leap of hope to try to get Byron in the door. But who knows? I'd be curious to see what happens. I'm going to keep my eyes on what the response is. They may not acknowledge anything at all. They just may play completely silent and just let kind of media do its own thing, depending on what happens. Right now, if you turn on social media, all of this is everywhere. Everything is totally everywhere, and it's been going on for a while. And it's absolutely crazy how many people have already picked up the story. And social media actually gets way more viewers than all of media combined. I mean, CNN and all of this crap about Fox and everything. Nobody really watches that stuff anymore, except for the boomers, right? For the older people. So that's what they're really hoping for. And we know Florida is a very highly aggressive boomer state. So I will tell you guys that there is a lot going on. We got a lot of things sort of happening. I've had a kind of a distracting week. I've had some mild gallbladder inflammation. I actually ended up going to the doctor, had a blood draw done. They actually bruised up my arm pretty bad, and they put another thing in here for they call it contrast, to do a CT scan to try to check me out. I thought it was the end of the world. I went in there thinking, oh man, there's something wrong with me. I'm starting to freak out. Nothing's wrong. No inflammation. Bowels are good. Liver's good. They couldn't see the inflammation. My doctor, who is actually a naturopath doctor, came out and said, likely you have an inflammation because the CAT scans don't always see it. Here are some natural medicines. Do a heat pad with castor oil. Do all of these things. So I already feel better. I already feel slightly better. I'm going to obviously have to take it a little bit lighter. I'm been eating kind of a little bit of more of a lean diet. And of course, God knows I can use it. So that being said, just had a really busy week. I mean, I was able to develop a pretty cool app this week. Actually, that's what I do for people wondering what I do is I'm in architectural development, digital marketing. That's specifically my background. So I'm very, very well versed when it comes to architectural development, coding, that sort of stuff. And I launched my own app. It's called the Reminder app. Reminder with an R, no ER at the end. So Reminder. So it's reminderapp.us. And it's a super cool app because it allows you to record everything. And there's like an embedded brain in there that does all of your planning, does all of your emailing, does all of your saving. So the main purpose that I use it for is I actually save, like I'm talking to my doctor. I took all of my messages with my doctor because I'm gonna write them through the portal and of course through my text messages, and I dump them all in there. And the brain that I created inside of this Reminder app actually can go in there and compile all the data together. So if you go back and say, hey, I took so-and-so medicine, because I have a history for 6 or 7 years with this doctor, and it'll show you everything that we've discussed over the last 6 or 7 years. If something has spiked, I can go in there and drop my blood records in there. Everything, all my CAT scans, my ultrasound, anything that I want to do, I can go in there, dump it in there, and it'll keep track of it. So if I have any other symptoms, let's say in a year or 2 or 5 from now, and I say, hey, I'm having pain in my gut, and I can go in there and say, hey, can you tell me the pain in my gut that I'm having? What does this have to do with? And I called the agent, Ally, and I say, hey, Ally, what do I got going on in my gut here? What's the possibilities? And it'll explain to you, based on your history, this could be this, and that. And it basically keeps track of everything that has happened to you. How many of you guys run into this constantly where you forget about what happened even 6 months ago or a year from now, and you wish you can recall it? Of course, the easiest way to do it is just take a picture and then it documents it. You can take a picture of any document. whether it's something that the hospital gives you, a text message, a correspondence, something out of your portal, and it'll document it for you. And what's nice, the main purpose for a reminder is the ability to be able to text, call, and have notifications of reminders in app. So it'll text you, call you, or email you, any of those things, which is amazing for people that are just kind of scatterbrained. I mean, I went in there and I'm doing these castor oil presses, and I said, my doctor's like, you got to do this 1 hour every twice a week for 1 hour. And I went in there and I said, hey, today's August so-and-so, or I think August 4th or whatever. I need to do these twice a week. Give me a reminder somewhere throughout the week. And that's all I said. And I said, submit memo, and it submitted to the calendar, and it'll notify me 4 days from now. So 4 days from, it'll notify me potentially on the 7th or the 8th. And it has the autonomy to sort of make up, its own mind. And I'm advertising this because it's super helpful. And my wife is extremely excited about this application that I've created because it helps fix a lot of these problems. And by the way, Reminder is a funny one because I've actually tried to develop this app for almost 12 years. 12 years. So this app has been in the back of my head for a very, very long time. In fact, the R that I used for the logo is actually a sketch that I made 12 years ago, even before I met my wife. I was already thinking about developing something because I've always wanted to keep track of something. Back in the days, the capabilities were a lot more limited. To develop something like this, you'd have to spend $50,000 to potentially $100,000, hire a bunch of developers. This is a 6-month to a 12-month process. And then you have to try to bring it to market, advertise, do all this. Times have changed. Things are a lot easier. Things are a lot simpler, easier to find developers, easier to develop apps through, AI and whatnot. And there's a lot more opportunities out there. So not to get completely off track here, but that's what I spent my week doing. So, going back to our James Fishback situation here, I'm going to tell you guys, this is going to be a completely pivotal moment in our history here for Florida. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know if I want to live in a Byron Donalds, Florida. I don't think that I'm okay with some of the crap he's already been pushing. He's suggesting the Senate to push some bills to actually hire the theft amount from 1,000 to potentially 2,000 to try to minimize sentencing. And we already know who does a majority of the stealing. It's Black people. Like it's not a lie. I mean, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and a lot of this stuff is finally starting to surface that Black people are responsible for a majority of the crime. We talked about this in one of my earlier episodes called Black Fatigue, and where I talk about this, that they only make about 4%, less than 4% between the ages of 15 and 65, and they commit like 60% of the crime. But here's the crazier part. I think it's actually substantially higher. And I'll tell you why. This actually surfaced recently, and I thought it was astonishing. If you go to the records, and nobody's picked up on this, I'm actually going to try to see if I can get an AI to do a scan and find how many percentage of people were racially profiled as Black that were really white. And on the contrast, how many were racially profiled to be white that were actually Hispanic or were, Indian or any kind of other names. That names kind of give it away. And of course, physical, a complexion, and that were actually Black. I'd be curious to see how many people were labeled as white, because that is always the narrative, to try to make it sound like the white race is a problem. And we know that's not true. We know the fact that any areas where you grow up where it's primarily white, there is a significant presence of safety. Anywhere where it's predominantly Black, you're going to have a lot of violence. The streets are going to be more trashed. I mean, they call it the ghetto. This isn't a secret. This is something that we are all familiar with. We all understand. It is not a secret. And more recently, I just realized I was watching this person doing an interview on this, and he had made a very interesting observation. I don't know who actually did the correlation here, but for the last 2 years, 2025 and 2026, not a single rap song hit the top 50 on the charts. Not even on the top 100 hit a single rap song. And some people came out and argued. I remember I went in there and read the comments, and they were talking about how this is probably because of the fact that, all of these AI, technology have come out and sort of minimized the rap music game. And of course, people are like Yeezy, we know who Yeezy is, are not really publishing a whole lot of rap and stuff like that. And because of some of his anti-Semitic stuff that he's doing, essentially, he's just not being advertised as much. And then there's other people saying that, of course, we just don't have the talent that we had back in the 90s or early 2000s. I'm like, no. And somebody made an observation, says this is because of U.S. aid. U.S. aid is essentially an organization that was defunded by the DOGE program that Trump released. So that is a very interesting observation. If you understand that a big portion of U.S. aid's money used to actually go to these rural kind of extremely diverse neighborhoods and diverse causes, you're going to understand why rap music was being promoted as much as it was, because they were giving these people money to literally be freeloaders. To be freeloaders and do nothing and get paid Section 8 to get food stamps, to be able to pay for their 3 or 4 baby mamas. That's what they were doing. And they were being rappers, basically lowlifes. And all of a sudden, that gravy train has sailed, and now they actually have to go out and get a real job. Now they actually have to go out and do something with their lives. It's an interesting phenomenon if you think about it, right? But it's just an interesting observation to know the fact that those things are factually true, but when we talk about them, they become extremely racist. What a world and what a time to be alive in. But I am telling you guys, you need to go vote for James Fishback. He is the real deal. And one thing that I like about James Fishback, and we haven't even got into this yet, is he's obviously against mass deportation. He's extremely against flock cameras. Flock cameras, by the way, I talked this about in another podcast. I ended up getting pulled over where they, got a speeding ticket. He claimed I was speeding, but when he pulled me over, and he said, "Oh, I see your license plate has a cover on it," and it's a clear cover, nothing, but apparently you're not allowed to have obstructions on your license plate. And I asked him, "When did that pass?" He said, "Late last year." And I said, "That's weird. I never heard about it." And I sat there and I thought about what in their right mind would push them to push a bill that would stop anything from covering up a license plate. Well, guess what? These flock cameras, they don't do a very good job taking pictures of cars and license plates specifically when it's covered up because of the reflections. And by the way, there's ways of, and I watched a lot of these videos where somebody says, "Oh, it's a prosecutor. You can get, a felony for taking down a flock camera." I mean, and they're talking about how laser pointers, if they destroy it and they catch it to you, they'll charge you with the felony. I'm like, look, guys, this is the tyranny that the Constitution talks about. We don't want to be spied on. So if somebody's out there literally taking down flock cameras, I'm going to be your cheerleader, and I'm going to probably get bail money and come bail you out because I support somebody that fights tyranny. That's what it is. It's tyranny. If you're going to sit here and tell me a load of crock that this essentially is a way for the bad guys to be caught, when in reality, we know that is not actually the truth. That is a blatant lie, because the only people that suffer because of flock cameras are the civilians, because our entire safety and privacy get compromised. We know when 9/11 happened and they put up metal detectors and they started adding all of these security measures saying, "Oh, we got to make sure you're not a terrorist." And then when you learn and you understand the fact that terrorists don't really actually exist, and the people that allegedly were involved in the 9/11 Twin Tower bombings happen to probably be most likely Mossad agents, you quickly learn the fact that this is all pre-programming. This is all stuff that they want you to believe that isn't actually true. Flock cameras are a real problem because that's what, and I encourage people, if there's a way to stop these flock cameras from spreading, get rid of them. I'll be the first one to say it. And somebody may turn around and say, Veto, you're inciting crimes and violence. I'm not inciting anything. I'm not saying it's okay for you guys to destroy private property, but this isn't exactly something that was done under anybody's vote. Who asked us? We the people. Who asked us, the citizens, are we okay with being spied on? Was there a vote that was ever passed where anybody actually voted on these flock cameras, whether locally in our local cities or in our states or in our country? Go and look up flock cameras tracking system and look at the radar on where they were 5 or 6 years back and where they are now. There's over 100,000 flock cameras. And keep in mind that this is going to actually grow exponentially. And what I realized today when I walked into my house, which I'm going to be actually removing these off of my home, is these Ring cameras, they now do this whole analysis. It'll say a woman carrying baby in the front yard. White truck pulling into the driveway. It knows it's a truck. It knows it's white. Male approaching the home. It knows that I'm a male. This is the world we live in, where now it knows exactly who's doing what. And don't think for a second that Ring is not going to share this data. For people out there that are in support of all this crap, this is why people hate Palantir. Peter Thiel is a disgusting human being. I don't want to have anything to do with these disgusting human beings. They want to spy on us. They want to use this facial recognition software that sees everything, every little thing that you're doing. Why? Because if you ever say anything against the government, or if you stand up, they're going to have a rap sheet on you so long, so big, that it will destroy your life. Because God forbid you came out and said something or did something where they caught you on camera. They'll go in there and say, hey, this car, committed this many crimes. We have it here in this flock camera. This is why any normal citizen and anybody with a little bit of common sense would never actually own a Tesla. I think only a moron would own a Tesla. And some of you may say, well, what do you mean? Teslas are actually really good. They have cameras. They, keep your house safe and surveillance and stuff like that. I mean, did you guys see that shooting that happened in Idaho where that guy, for whatever stupid reason, he had an assault rifle, an AR-15, which is a great gun, by the way. But that gun, by the way, is extremely dangerous. And this couple was sitting in their Tesla vehicle with the plug inside of their charge ports. And what ended up happening was he came up and they seen him. But they couldn't drive away. They couldn't get out of the car either because the plug was plugged in and you can't drive. It won't let you drive and it won't let you override. And even in the state of emergency, like this was clearly a state of emergency, it won't allow you to override because it'll pull the plug out and it's extremely dangerous. So they won't let you do that. So they sat there while he unloaded and them in their own car in cold blood because the Tesla car would not allow them to drive off. If they had even 5 or 10 seconds to react, throw it into gear and drive off, they probably would have gotten away, free and clear. But because of these quote unquote safety mechanisms, it puts us in very dangerous environments and very dangerous situations. And they'll turn around and say, oh, this is for better, for the better of humanity. I mean, I'm getting kind of fed up with this Elon Musk character. I mean, I would say that he was, he has a lot of ambitions and all these things, but all the crap he's trying to push, he's trying to get humanoids, which is basically robots, to take over the planet. He's like, there's going to be over 1 million humanoids in the next 5 years. And then he's claiming that we're not going to have to do anything. AI will do everything for you. He's underestimating how truly lazy our culture is. Nobody's going to turn to AI and do everything. Maybe the robots, maybe they'll start a program, adopt a robot. But the truth is, if you're anybody with a little bit of common sense, you're not going to want these damn robots in your house. And some people say, well, Veto, you're an AI and you build development. Exactly. I'm in development. I'm an AI, and I don't want that stuff in my house. There is the only cameras that I'm going to be getting rid of my cameras. And in my phone, in fact, I don't have it here. It's on my table over there. But my phone, in fact, it actually has a cover on it. My laptop has a cover on it. Mark Zuckerberg's camera, he's actually was in an interview and his laptop was standing in the back and you could see it. And there's a cover over his camera. And then of course, even BB, he's on his phone, they're recording him. His camera has duct tape over his camera lens. Why is that, guys? Because they don't want to be spied on. And they understand that this software is capable of hacking them at any given moment. So it's extremely important for people to understand that although some of these things may have certain privileges, we don't keep stuff in our house like Alexas or any of these technology crap. The most, advanced technology that I have in this home is literally my laptop. My laptop and maybe this iPad. My kids, by the way, they primarily play with my Game Boy. It's called Superboy, which actually you can put Super Nintendo games in it, and it literally has no internet. And I said, you guys can play that until you drop. And of course, their attention span is so short, so they'll play it maybe for 30 minutes in a day, and they'll just drop it, maybe an hour. But these video games that are extremely immersive, whether it's VR, whether it's Nintendo Switch or PlayStation or Xbox, it's extremely addictive. Kids become extremely addicted to these games. So we don't let our kids play that. We're extremely against technology. I keep them away from phones. I keep them away from iPads. We don't do any of that. We're not the iPad fam here. Even though I'm in technology, this is probably why I keep my kids away from technology, because I understand the dangers of it. So that is one thing that I will say James Fishback has done an amazing job, is he's extremely against flock cameras. And for those people out there, if you're out there and you want to find a way to destroy this entire ecosystem of flock, I will be standing right behind you. Because America, we are not China. America, we didn't sign up for a socialistic Hunger Games environment, okay? This is not the Hunger Games where you guys are going to spy on us and you guys are going to punish us and you guys are going to ration our food and you guys are going to feed us when you think it's appropriate. You guys are going to give us social scores. We sort of already have social scores, by the way. It's called social media. If you say anything out of line on social media, you'll lose a job. If you say anything on social media, you could get arrested. We're already there. We're about halfway there. The other thing that I really like about James Fishback is he's extremely pro farms and he's extremely against data centers. Data centers have also become a big problem. I talked about Elon Musk coming out and talking about some of his technology that he wants to roll out, and the Neuralink, they're like, in the next 6 months or a year, the Neuralink technology is going to be able to give you a sight if you're blind, because it goes into your cortex, your retina cortex and stuff, and it has the capabilities of somehow, I guess, hijacking or tapping into your retina cortex, where you can see and give you not just regular eye vision. It will actually give you, sonar and all sorts of weird stuff that I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? So you can see in kind of in different dimensions. That's pretty creepy. Nobody's putting anything in my brain. I'm going to tell you guys that for sure. Nobody's going to ever touch my brain or my palm, because the Bible talks about that in the end times, that they are going to come to us in the form of a mark. The mark will be the mark of the beast. Do I genuinely believe that the mark of the beast is going to be us? There's going to be a red guy sitting there with horns, and it's going to be a physical 666 sign? No, I do not. I think it's going to be as subtle as day. In other words, they're going to spring upon us. It's going to be in the form of buy or sell, and you have to basically give your alliance to this cause or to this nation, sort of like they were doing with, Fauci. And by the way, that's a whole nother subject. We don't really have enough time to talk about Fauci and what's going on with him. But I want to tell you guys that Fauci got indicted on contempt. They actually had a vote and it was like 8-7. And they found the fact that he was in fact guilty of contempt. And they're going to be, he's going to be scrutinized. He's going to be deposed by Congress. And what's crazy, he's not going to be able to plead the fifth anymore. He's not going to be able to sit there and he's going to have to actually answer these questions. And what's crazier is they took his phone that he had in his possession during the COVID era between 2020 and 2023 that was related to his quote unquote work. So this is a big deal for America. I love seeing stuff like this happen because it really does show that we still have an ounce of decency left in us, that there are still some things in our world that have justice. Of course, with these Epstein files and everything going on, because there's guilty people on both sides, and Trump clearly knows it. It's not just a Democrat-Republican game. The people that they have compromised are the elite of the elite of the elite. And these people will not allow any of this to come out because all hell will break loose. And Trump knows it. And Israel is using this to leverage and to extort and to blackmail all of these people into submission. That's its goal. Its goal is to ultimately corner these people like a dog and then get their way with you. It's very unfortunate. And this is the stuff that Charlie Kirk was extremely against. And me and my family actually got to sit down. Angel Studios came out with a Charlie Kirk's movie. It's a 1 hour kind of a tribute to him. It's kind of his legacy. And it's a 1 hour, I don't know if you could call it a movie. I guess it's a movie. But it talks about his life. I'm actually really glad the fact that they didn't stick a bunch of Erica Kirk in it. There's some clips in there that kind of annoyed me. You got Neff and Andrew Colvette, which those two I can't stand. And they're sort of the people that have replaced the Charlie Kirk show now, and they're the face of the Charlie Kirk show. I will not listen to this trash anymore because it is no longer the Charlie Kirk show. Who is Andrew Colvette? You're nobody, dude. Nobody cares about you. Don't think that you could step into the shoes of Charlie Kirk and get still even remotely anything that Charlie Kirk accomplished. Charlie Kirk was ultimately a legend. One big observation that I made about Charlie Kirk, and I want to put this on the record, when Charlie Kirk was alive, he was the glue that glued all of our Republican Party together. After the death of Charlie Kirk, something interesting happened where now all of a sudden the Republican Party is split down the middle. You have this extremely big group of people. You have like the David Harris, Tim Pool. Who else is in? Who else is in that bunch? Obviously Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro's always been, but he's always been on the far side of Israel and stuff like that. Of course, you have Megyn Kelly. She's extremely pro Erica. Donald Trump is obviously extremely pro Erica Kirk. Donald Trump Jr. is extremely pro Erica because they want to be involved in that cause. And then you have J.D. Vance and Andrew Colvette. And then, of course, you have people like Benny Johnson, David Harris, Jack Posbiak. These are some of the smaller ones, but they're extremely, and they spend all of their energy and their time and all of their influence to try to create a narrative. And this is the crap that I honestly hate because they are slowly rewriting Charlie's legacy. And you know what I hate? That they didn't have an explanation for why they took Charlie Kirk's episodes down. Why did you guys take Charlie Kirk's episodes down? I would be curious to see, and I'm going to do this crawl, by the way, because I was smart enough to actually download all of them before they took them down. And I'm going to go and see all of the episodes that they released. I'm going to have my very advanced AI bot go and crawl their episodes and compare them to the existing episodes and to see if they cropped anything out. I would be curious to see if they cropped anything out. I'd be intrigued to see if they did crop anything out. What exactly did they crop out? But I got a lot of pushback, so they came back and re-released them. And it was like a kind of an absurd thing where they had no explanation for it. And when people asked questions, they sort of ignored it and walked away. But like I said, James Fishback is the best candidate for Florida. And I really hope he wins the governor position, gubernatorial basically position here in Florida. He told me, by the way, as like, Veto, if you have any suggestions on policies we need to make, here's, I have his personal number. We'll stay in touch and stuff like that. I'm going to reach out because I plan on eventually running for some sort of position, maybe Congress, maybe some local position, because I genuinely believe we need change. There needs to be more people with the backbone running with common sense, running with confidence, running with no shame, and running for the right reasons, not running to make money. By the way, you won't buy me out. I remember when somebody offered me, $3 million to buy my voice band project. This was even before we barely did anything. We were not even in beta stage yet, which, by the way, if you guys want to check it out, go to voiceband.com and check out our beta version. Our hard launch in honor of Charlie Kirk will actually be on September 10th in honor of the legendary Charlie Kirk, who stood for freedom of speech. So come and check it out. And our hard launch will be then. We want people to understand that this is a place where you can speak freely. You can say whatever's on your mind. The way the infrastructure is developed is we're going to allow up to 60-second clips. And as you create a following, you will be rewarded for it. You will be rewarded for it. And you reach 100,000 followers, you can start doing 10-minute clips. You reach 500,000 followers, you can run up to 30-minute clips. And if you reach 1 million plus followers, then you can run 1 hour plus clips. In other words, entire podcasts, entire everything. We want to promote a place where people really dedicate their time, but we want an area where they can go and use our infrastructure to get the word out, and nobody's going to be able to censor it. This network is fully decentralized. I don't think you guys understand what that means because that word was very, very misused. I've been in the blockchain space for close to a decade now. And so I understand the blockchain space more than probably anybody out there that claims that they understand blockchain. Because I was on Bitcoin even before Bitcoin made any kind of news. No, they were talking about it in potentially in underground online circles only. 2015 is when I first heard about Bitcoin. I didn't have a whole lot invested into it, but I was a spectator and an observer and a follower of a lot of these things. And I knew that blockchain technology would ultimately change the world. But I also understood that there would be a counter to blockchain. And to tell you what currently counters blockchain is AI. So decentralized is freedom of speech and no control, no censorship. AI is full censorship and full control and full no privacy. And of course, decentralized is pro-privacy and extremely private-based. So if you take on a spectrum the comparison between decentralized and AI and decentralization are the polar opposites. They're not even the same remotely thing. And it's crazy to me when people said, well, AI is going to replace decentralization. I'm like, why does it have to? You can incorporate AI into decentralized projects and have somewhat of the best of both worlds. If your understanding is to ultimately replace one with the other, and of course, if you lean towards AI, you're going to create a world full of Palantirs, flock cameras, and extremely big government overreach. And I'm extremely against that. Big government sucks. Just to tell you guys where that comes from, Charlie Kirk founded his organization, Turning Point USA, and his slogan was "Big Government Sucks," because he understood that the government had so much overreach already. They were already putting their hands in their pockets into our privacy, into our finances, into everything. They were controlling us with the way that the markets were, and it became almost impossible to raise a family. They were indoctrinating our children, and so big government essentially is something that Charlie Kirk was against. He understood the fact that government is obviously a needed thing, but as done in moderation. And there has to be a balance in government where there isn't any overreach. This is why he supported people like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I believe he would have been in big support of James Fishback. I genuinely do. And therefore, this is why I am endorsing James Fishback and why I support him fully, because I have personally met the guy. I understand, his mindset. And of course, now he's married and he's about to have a kid. That's huge. That's huge. A lot has happened in his life. And good for his career as well. And let me tell you something. A family man has his heart in the right place. So thank you guys for tuning in. This is Veto Creed, God, Grit, and Glory. Stay tuned for more.